A friend of mine recently sent me this list of different ways of telling someone to F off in different languages, like sayings that essentially mean that. Saying F off so YouTube doesn't get mad at me. And at first I was like, these can't be real. And then I was looking up. It appears from my initial searching that they're real. Maybe if you're watching this from one of these countries, you can confirm. We got one from Brazil, go comb a monkey. Finland, go ski into a spruce. That sounds like a joke about Finnish people that would be on SNL or something. Colombia is go fry some asparagus. That sounds delicious. There's one from Albania that I don't think I can even say here. Go get by a blind bear. That is rough. That is atrocious. But anyway, I like to do a lot of lettering, and I thought one of these would be really fun to draw. Actually, I think they'd all might be fun to draw. But I'm gonna draw one in this video. I'm gonna walk through the process, pulling it all together from sketch to finish, and hopefully we'll come up with something fun. So the one I'm gonna do is go back home, your mother made you waffles. I don't know what it is about that, but I think that's hilarious. Apparently this is a saying from France. I'm gonna draw this, and if you don't wanna watch it, go back home, your mother made you waffles. All right, so I'm thinking for the illustration, I wanna go with like a vintage retro diner sign look as like the structure, and then just sort of replace the things that would be on the sign with this saying. I think it could look cool. I gathered some reference images. Let's hop over to my iPad and start sketching. And if you don't want to come with me, you can go comb a monkey. I know I'm getting to it. Why don't you go ski into a spruce? Okay, so here are the signs that I gathered. Just some old 50s, 60s diner signs. I think they'll be a good starting point. I found this image that looked like, I think it was like an ad from an old one or a menu or something like that. But I thought I could start with this as like the structure. I think I want the main structure. I'm gonna get this like circle or oval thing. I'm not worried too much about styling the type yet, but I am gonna make a new layer for this lettering just so I can move it around quickly. And I'm just like referencing the size and shape of these letters, but it's really just for placement at the moment. And then we'll go back in after I have a good composition and then kind of figure out what it's gonna look like. Look at that, that's perfect. I mean, doesn't look perfect, but like the shape is pretty close. Oh, I like this Ralph's Diner thing. Let's bring this one down. Maybe we'll center it like that. Is it a parallelogram? I'm not trying to be perfect because I like that when I do the final line work, I'll sort of interpret it my own way, even though I'm using this as like a starting point. Okay, let me turn this down a little bit more. So, what do we got here? I think this should just be mother, and then maybe we could have like a little, one of those like tack-on signs, like that thing on the burger spot for the your. Just quickly like reference this style a little bit and see if we can. I'm getting lucky with spacing so far. We're gonna worry about making it better afterwards. This is just sort of planning it out. I want to turn back on this original thing. I like what's happening with this back section. I think I want more of this like concentric circle thing going on. I think the top was looking like it needed a little bit more weight. Maybe we can do something a little bit different here, like that. The 24 hours thing could stay here because I think that's kind of funny because it's like you can go back home for 24 hours a day all the time. It needs one of those arrows like this one, but I think it should go the other way. Maybe we can, let's transform this, flip it, and then maybe it could like come down from the top part, and then we can have like a little circle sign on top of that for the your and your mother. And then we can just put your, can put your mother in there. I think it's looking pretty good. We just got to get waffles down here. I think instead of just trying to letter that, I'm just gonna type and then we can work on that. I'm gonna use my new hand-drawn font, Super Chunk, as a placeholder. It's got like a bunch of little ligatures built in, the L and the E. Love that. Duplicate it so we can make like a little 3D, maybe like box sign thing. I think that looks pretty good. It just feels a little empty over on the right. Maybe what we need to do is just pull this over so it's a little bit more, like the angle was more on one side than the other side. I feel like if it's symmetrical like that, it works. All right, let's tighten this up. So it's around 1 p.m. right now, and typically around this time, I'm going to make some coffee. to make it through the rest of the day so I can focus and get my work done. The problem is when I'm trying to do a drawing like this, hands can get a little shaky from all that caffeine. But ever since I've been trying out these Magic Mind mental performance elixirs, I haven't needed to go have my afternoon coffee because I'm getting my little boost from this and no shaky hands. Pretty great. If you're interested in trying out Magic Mind and maybe taking on this 7-day challenge, don't forget you can use my promo code Piascik20 at magicmind.com/Piascik. That'll get you up to 48% off a subscription. So check that out. Shout out to Magic Mind. Let's go draw this waffle sign. All right, so to do this final line work, I'm just gonna blow it up a little bit, fill up my document a little bit more. And I think I'll use the symmetry tool to do some of this middle stuff since I was like adding onto the side and I want them to be balanced because this is supposed to be a sign of something, you know. Listen, I'm gonna use symmetry. So I'm gonna bring down the opacity a wee bit and come over to the grid thing, turn on symmetry. I'm gonna switch over to the classic inker from my Retro Supply Co. Brush set. So I'm doing like the straight parts first, kind of draw these round connections in to make sure that they're smooth, but still a little bit rounded. Definitely saving some time using the symmetry here. Take advantage of it while we can. I'm gonna make this a little bit taller down here so we got more room for the waffles. Okay, I think this is pretty good, but I was just thinking that we got those stars over there. So maybe what we do is we take this ellipse shape and flip it so that the extra lines are on this side and then the stars can be on the area where there's not as much stuff. Now we need this oval for your, and what we can do is select the inside and then we can come down to this layer and erase that. All right, it's a little too clean. What I'm gonna do is bring down the opacity all together, and then I'm going to make the brush size a little bit bigger, and I'm just gonna trace this. All right, I think this is better. I wasn't happy with how thin the line work was, and I think this just looks a little bit more natural for the structure. We can start going in and adding some of these details and like figuring out this lettering style. First, I want to just add in a couple little things here, like maybe this can have like a little bit of a overshoot there, and then maybe the same with the arrow. All right, let's get this go back home lettering in here. There's an E in home and there's an E in here, and it's the most stylized character and I like this look. I'm gonna use this E and then try to build the other letters based on this. Kind of trace this over. Okay, so the N has M elements to it. I think what we could do is we could trace one side and then flip it and see how that works. Let's duplicate this and then flip it. And then I'm gonna use the modifier to lock the horizontal axis, and I'm gonna make it a little bit longer than the N, but I don't want it to be like an extra long character. And then I'm gonna come down to this reference layer and I'm gonna see what happens if I like squish it and see if it looks bad. Erase that, duplicate that, flip it. It does have that like mid-century look to it already. So we don't have an H, but we can take some visual cues from the other letters to make one. So what I'm gonna do is just draw this vertical line. I'm also gonna like flip it a few times upside backwards because it's hand drawn and I want it to look like it's not just copied. And then I'm going to drag it over to get to match the width. Let's duplicate another one, rotate it to 90 degrees, and then squish it down to the width of the crossbar and the E. And now it looks like it's part of that font, so we can merge those together, turn that off, and now we need an O. So we can use this D and turn on symmetry. Can you guys hear Dottie barking upstairs? She's not really that happy that other people can live in our neighborhood and walk around, be at their house. Okie dokie. So one thing that you want to be mindful of when you are drawing letters is that when they're perfectly round, like an O, they need to go beyond the baseline and the X height so that they look, because right now the O looks smaller because the D had that hard edge, so it didn't need to expand. So we're gonna take what we did here and just like fix it up, and I think maybe modify the M a little bit because it does look a little bit weird. It looks a little too thin. All right, so I turned on this grid here so that I can come in here and just sort of fix this up, make sure it looks a little bit more consistent and less weird. So the first thing I'm gonna do is stretch this O so that it goes beyond those two guidelines. And then I'm gonna come in and trim the top of these letters or add on when needed so that they match this guide. So I'm not gonna use the eraser, I'm gonna use my brush and then tap to use it as an eraser so that I can match the texture. And I think that looks pretty good. I'm undecided about the M. I kind of like it as is, but I think I'm gonna go with it. It's got that like mid-century vibe. It's got that uniqueness to it, like the little details, like the little angle on the top of the E. Okay, so now we need the go back home. So because the go doesn't have any connectors on it, I'm just gonna draw it as a solid shape like this. And then we'll use this G over here, I mean the C, to make our G. Keep it all capital, so maybe we can do a B with this R. There is an A here, so we can copy that. There isn't a lowercase c, but we can make do. All right, I'm gonna freestyle this K. All right, we are good. It's time to move on to the mother type. I think I wanna work from this Ralph's lettering. So I'm copying what I can from this. We want it to come down. Let's see if we can make an O that fits sort of tucked into that space without interfering. All right, there is an H, so we can depend on that. What I'm gonna do is turn off that, and I'm just gonna make the best of it. Okay, that looks pretty cool. I'm just gonna do my own version of the your. I think I'll do the made you waffles, and I'll just use like my hand-drawn font super chunk to get that in there, speed things along. I may not want the ligature for the L and the E in waffles, so I'm going to make another reference that doesn't have it, and I'm gonna just convert this to an image layer so I can easily move it back. All right, so the sketch is in a good place. Added in a little, couple little details. We got the it's cheap, put a little GTFO to match the 24 hours on the other side. Now I'm gonna go in and do some coloring. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do for color. I'm gonna give it like a textured vintage vibe. Probably use the Riso brushes again, but I think I'm gonna use this Ralph's Drive-In as like a color starter sample pack, like this blue and the red and that like cream color. I'll use those as a base and then add as needed. So I'm gonna willy-nilly this a little bit using that as a starting point, and I'll time-lapse this and check back in with you. All right, so I filled in colors. This isn't done yet. I'm gonna use the Riso brushes to bring this to life and give it that retro look and feel. I have my colors all set up on separate layers so I can do them individually. So what I'm gonna do is just go through them one at a time. I'm gonna start with this blue layer, so I'm gonna select that color, and then I'm going to load that layer as a selection, and then I'm gonna come up here to the top to a new layer, and then just grab one of the Riso brushes at like full size to fill in the background. 90% coverage. All right, so we see we got that texture there. And I'm gonna attempt to do this gradient on top of it. What I'm gonna try to do is do it with one of the shader brushes. So I think I'll go with like a 60%, and then I'll go back to that darker blue. Okay, so the tricky thing is gonna be getting it to like slowly gradate. It's looking pretty good in a lot of the areas, and especially when I go in with like the brushes, the texture to like mess it up a little bit. Let's go to the red layer, load this as a selection. I drop that color, and then we can do a new layer, set it to multiply, and choose 90% for this one. And it's already looking quite a bit cooler. Let's get this cream color, and then the yellow. And there it is. I think it turned out pretty cool. There was definitely some periods through the process where I was like, this is trash. I wish I wasn't doing it anymore. But then I think it came together nicely. Let me know what you think in the comments. If I went through that Riso process a little bit too quickly, I'd recommend checking out this video. It's on one of these sides, where I explain it a little bit more coherently and not just in a crazy time lapse. Because it's a really fun process. It's one of my favorite brushes to use, and they're available in my Retro Supply Co. brush pack, so check that out if you aren't familiar. Good talk. Okay, thanks. Bye.